Hey guys, Valerie here, and today I thought it would be a good opportunity to take some time and talk about imposter syndrome. Um, I think that as prevalent as imposter syndrome can be in the tech space, it is one of those things that you can actually apply to any type of space. So if you're navigating a space and you're new to that space, oftentimes there are these feelings where you are a fraud. You're fraudulent in the sense that you have relatively little experience in whatever it is you're doing, and you don't even think you have business existing in that space. Um, my most, I guess, impactful and most memorable experience with imposter syndrome would have come towards the end of my coding bootcamp. And if you're on my channel, you'll see that I did a video previously where I kind of detail my experience doing a coding bootcamp. And towards the end of that, I was doubtful of myself. I was doubtful of my my skill set. I didn't think I was good enough. I didn't even think I had business calling myself a web developer or programmer or anything to do with tech, because I was still very much in that mindset that there was so much I had to learn. I'm not knowledgeable enough. I don't know enough. What even is code? Like, I had no idea that I was really hindering myself just by thinking that. And I think generally when you're new to any sort of space, you have these feelings of doubt that you're just not going to be able to succeed at whatever it is you're trying to do. It could be, programming. It could be if you work in the medical profession, if you're a lawyer and you're just starting out, if you're in a trade of some sort and it's your first day on the job. I mean, whatever it is, I think generally the human instinct is to think, oh boy, there's always going to be someone better than me. There's always going to be someone who knows more than me. And you let that overpower your ability. And with imposter syndrome, for those who aren't familiar, it's that ever-present feeling that no matter how much knowledge you've gained, no matter how much you've learned, no matter how wide your skill set, you still feel inadequate because there's always going to be something missing. And as a result, it affects your performance, it affects your mindset. You're not able to succeed appropriately because you're constantly thinking, oh my goodness, there's something I don't know, and as a result, I know nothing. And I guess this video is also about providing some helpful tips on how to cope. Things that kind of helped me, because when you're entering the freelance space as a web developer or any sort of freelance space, and you're just starting out and your level of experience is relatively low, you have to find a way to market yourself. You have to find a way to let people know that I'm here and I have these skills and I can provide you with a service. For me, it started out difficult because I wasn't even sure if I had business saying to clients that I can do this for you. But I think sometimes you have to come to terms with accepting what you don't know and accepting your limitations. And if you are okay with that, you can market yourself in a way that says, listen, you know what? I can do this. I may not know everything about it, but I can find ways to learn. I can make up for my lack of knowledge. I can make up for my inexperience with my willingness to learn something new. So I think when you're transitioning from being a student, from schooling, into a space where you now are a professional and you're calling yourself by your profession, you have to wear that hat of confidence, because a lot of the times you don't really know what you're doing, but the ability to speak to it, I think, will change how you go about doing it. Because not only are you going to learn how to do it, but you'll be able to then, once you're done, be able to speak to it like, you know what, I did a project that involved, let's say, WordPress, for example. I'll be honest and say that one of the first freelance gigs I took was a WordPress website, and I knew absolutely nothing about WordPress. And I think at that point in my life, I thought, you know what, I could sit here and say, you know what, I don't know WordPress, maybe find someone else to do the project, or I can learn WordPress and succeed and believe in myself enough to know that even though I don't know something, I can learn it and complete whatever task I'm being asked to do. everyone's approach is going to be different, but for me, my experience was that I had the ability to learn it. I just needed to be given that opportunity. And the opportunity at that point was the project that was handed to me. And lo and behold, I did succeed. So I think something in that method worked for me. But I'd also say that generally when you come faced with something that you're new at and you don't have the full confidence that you're going to be able to accomplish it, it really starts up here in your mind. Like, you have to be able to say to yourself that, listen, even though I'm new to this industry, there's a reason why I entered into it. I know for myself, I'm very passionate about what I do. I'm passionate about technology. I really genuinely want to learn a million different programming languages. I want to learn all there is to learn about web development, computers, the internet of sorts. So I knew that with that passion, that would be enough of a driver to encourage me to keep learning. And regardless of what I know or don't know, I'm going to put it in my mind that I'm going to learn it. I'm going to become an expert at whatever skill I'm looking to learn. And that's enough to say that, listen, I can do this. I can do this. There's a certain level of optimism that's required when you're faced with a seemingly impossible task. But I think generally you don't want to be focused on what you can't do. Just focus on the skills that you've built and use that small set of skills or medium or large set of skills to drive you into learning the skills that you don't know. Don't focus on the things that you don't know and use that to label yourself as being incompetent or incapable. Because if you're in this new space and you're trying to navigate it, the only way to navigate it is to acknowledge that you exist in this space as whatever profession you are or as whatever label you're trying to assume. And you have to wear that hat with confidence. You have to be able to hold your head high and say, you know what, there's a reason why I did this boot camp. In my case, there's a reason why I did this boot camp. There's a reason why I worked so hard to complete the 3 months of study that I did. There's something that I gained. However small, however great, there's something that I gained. So don't let that be overshadowed, and know that regardless of how knowledgeable you are or aren't, you still have the potential to learn, and you can still overcome that learning curve and that limitation that you're faced with. And I'd say finally, just join a community of learners, join a community of growth-minded, like-minded individuals who acknowledge that there are things that they don't know, and that generally as a collective, you guys can have these discussions about the missing pieces or the so-called gaps in your experience, and what you may be lacking. You may find someone out there in that community who has a wealth of that you lack, and vice versa. So you guys can exchange that knowledge. You guys can have a sort of dialogue about different types of things that you're trying to learn. I can tell you, for me, for a long time, I thought I was alone. I thought that I existed in this tech space by myself. I was this little speck of dust on this massive landscape of people who were so much more knowledgeable than me. But then once I realized that, you know, Val, you have some skills that other people don't have, whether that be programming related or not. There are still some things I have to offer. And just by virtue of that, I'm able to go out and I'm able to interface with other people. And together we can acknowledge that we're learning, we're growing, and regardless of what we know or don't know, there are things out there that are worth working towards. So in that, I've realized that, you know, imposter syndrome is not going anywhere. It's gonna remain. There are senior developers I know who still deal with imposter syndrome, because when they're dealing with a project where a feature needs to be built and it's being done in a certain language, environment, or framework that they're not as familiar with, they become the noob. Even though they're seniors and they've been doing this for 10 plus years, instantly they become the noob. So that imposter syndrome is constantly in flux. I think we're gonna encounter it at various stages of our lives in various contexts. So there is no cure for it, but there is a way to embrace it and to allow it to exist in your life. If you are okay with not knowing everything, I think you'll be fine, because imposter syndrome is just the idea that as a human being, you have limited knowledge in certain areas, and you have to adopt that growth mindset that will allow you to make room for the things you need to learn. So I hope this helped somebody. It's definitely helped me. And hopefully in whatever new space you're trying to navigate, you can sort of shift your mindset and think that maybe I don't need to be perfect at everything, and maybe I don't need to know everything, but as long as I stay positive and I adopt that growth mindset and embrace my imposter syndrome, I'll be fine.